right, just about to go live.
I see the pop-up notification in the email, Tim, so I think we're good.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Today is January 24th, 4 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Saratoga County Prosperity Partnership.
I see the pop-up notification in the email, Tim, so I think we're good.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Today is January 24th, 4 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Saratoga County Prosperity Partnership.
I see the pop-up notification in the email, Tim, so I think
There we go. Sorry about that.
Is everybody hearing that? Okay. Okay.
Yes, twice.
Sorry, we should be good to go now.
Okay, thank you. I'll just start again. Good afternoon, everybody. Time is 4 o'clock, January 24th. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Saratoga County Prosperity Partnership. Our minutes from our last meeting, has everybody gotten a chance to review? Any comments or questions?
I just have one comment.
Yes.
Basically, under the board members present versus board members absent, Tim is listed under both categories. So I don't know if he was here or not.
Oh,
Thank you, Rocky. Okay, other than that, can I get a motion to accept the board minutes with that revision that Rocky pointed out?
So move.
Thank you, Supervisor Barrett. Get a second?
Yeah, I'll second that, but I would also say, I don't think any of the new board members should, they should abstain because they were not at that meeting. So just wanted to get that out there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Maria, I'll be abstaining. If I do so, will you have enough votes to approve the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
So I still need that second.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate that. All approved?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Supervisor Butler will abstain.
I'm sorry?
I said Supervisor Butler will abstain.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, motion passed.
As well as Supervisor Kuznier's.
And myself abstain.
Okay,
And Supervisor Hammond.
thank you.
Jake DeVito abstain too.
You
Okay.
just have to check who you have for a quorum right now and make sure you have a majority of those present to carry the minutes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Does it become an issue, Justin, though, that there's a lot of new board members and others have left, so there may not be a majority of,
It's not uncommon for turnover on boards where this occurs. So the minutes can be still posted and generally accepted as official, but if we don't have a majority of those present now voting in the affirmative, in other words, there's too many abstentions, which is okay. We could just leave the minutes as unofficial and move on. It's not anything flawed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So the motion was carried? We can carry the motion to accept them, or?
Well, what's our quorum right now and how many yes votes do we have, I guess, and I apologize for not having the head count myself.
That's okay. It looks like we have 7 board members who can vote. And I had nobody say no.
Just need a majority of the board that's present here saying yes.
Okay. The majority of the board that's present here today has said yes, so I think we can safely move on.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is the treasurer's report. Rocky, can you give an explanation?
sure. Okay, so in terms of the first item to discuss very briefly, if you have it in front of you, is the transactions that occurred during the month of December. And it's relatively straightforward. There was a 369. There were 9 bills that were paid, 2 of which I want to bring to your attention that have the category Startup New York for the Saratoga LCC and the PVA. They are reimbursable expenses. Okay, so it's a pass-through expense that we pay, but we're reimbursed for by those entities. So that's not an expense to the partnership. And the others are pretty much self-explanatory. The electric products, office products are related to our computer expenses that we have for the printer and the fax machine, monthly expenses. So when the others, if there's any questions, we'll move on to the next point, which is the statement of activity. Just a couple items to bring to your attention there under revenue. Once again, to reinforce the fact that just under the revenue line item for Startup New York leaseback, that does reflect the revenue that came in to offset the expenses that occurred in the month of December. On the second revenue item under the occupancy tax revenue, this does not reflect the third quarter payment that was made by the county. That payment of $112,500 was put in the bank on or about January 3rd or 4th. Therefore, it's not reflected in the statement of activity through December 31st, 2021. But that payment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, that payment has been made by the county and has been deposited in our accounts. It's just not reflected in the statement of activity at this time.
Correct, Rocky. Yep, all processed and it's in there, just not reflected on this month. So next month we'll have it on the reports.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Matthew.
problem.
And then in terms of expenditures, very minimal. Once again, it reflects the transactions that I just referred to in that earlier comment in terms of obviously there aren't going to be any changes dealing with payroll expenses and employee expenses. So there's been no change from the previous month on that. And it's just in the general office expenses where there were selected categories that were changed on that. So that's all I have to say on the statement of activity. In the terms of the statement of financial position, and the only comment I have to make is the cash flow looks good. And once again, what's reflected in the assets under the bank accounts does not represent the deposit associated with the $112,500 that was made in January. So there's no issues with our cash flow as it relates to the organization. So all that being said, that these financial statements are being completed to reflect the transactions that occurred in December that are not reflected in these statements because the billings and things like that had an expense in December, but we weren't billed till January. So it's not noted on the financial statements. So these things will be dealt with and these transactions, these activities, and these financial statements will be completed and then provided to the auditor as part of their information that they need to conduct the audit for 2021. Okay, so that's all I have on my report relative to the financial statements, etc.
Thank you, Rocky. That was a very good explanation. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Rocky regarding the financial statements? Okay, I think we can have a motion to approve the financial statements.
I'll make the motion if I can.
Okay, thank you, Rocky.
Second.
A second by Mr. Wood. Thank you. Can we vote on a motion to accept the financial statements? Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Thank you. Motion carried. The next item is an update for the USDA Rural Business Development Grant. Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm hoping to stop giving this update when we get some of the paperwork finalized here. It's been a slower process than we would have liked, but working with Matt, we do have the paperwork together for our quarterly submission to be reimbursed for the most recent round of work that's been done on this grant. We are still waiting from further input from the feds to get that amendment in, just as a reminder, and for some of the newer folks on the board. We do have a relatively sizable amount of money remaining on this grant, which is focused on small businesses and business startups in mainly rural communities, or smaller towns around the county. And we have a decent chunk of that money remaining that we're trying to get an amendment to allow us to apply the funds towards a technical study of some broadband issues in the northwest part of the county. It would be stretching across, I believe, 5 different towns, where we'd be able to use some of these resources in conjunction with county funds to do a more thorough technical study of the needs to be addressed for some broadband issues there, ideally to help small businesses, people working from home, and the potential for startups. We want to get that rolling as soon as possible, because then we have an opportunity to jump into the hopper for more federal money next year. So and next year is now.
Yeah.
So it is now next year. So we want to get that taken care of as quickly as possible. Matt and I are getting that paperwork in for the quarterly draw. It's just in final review phase right now, and then we're going to get the amendment for the original grant and an RFP together as soon as we have that info from the feds, and working with the team at the county procurement office to make sure that we've got everything tied out with federal regulations on those dollars.
Tim? Anybody have any questions for Tim regarding the update? Okay. The next item is the contract with Saratoga County. Justin, if you wouldn't mind discussing that, especially with our new members who may need to hear from the ground up what's happening.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do so, and welcome aboard to the new folks for sure. Just by way of background for the new folks, and to, I guess, refresh the memory of some of the folks that have been around for a while. The Saratoga County Prosperity Partnership has a very unique funding source set up under state statute. It's very, very unique. The only thing comparable to it within this region is the Schenectady Metroplex, that has a diversion of 1% of the county sales tax into their funding base. The partnership has a state statute under the tax law that allows 50% of the bed tax collected annually in Saratoga County to be remitted to the partnership for its operating budget and to support county economic development. Historically, the county and the partnership have set up an annual agreement that's now been amended. I think we're on the 7th amendment. 2015, I think, is when it started. It provides a mechanism where the county has the ability to appropriate an estimated amount each year, early in the year, to provide the partnership with some stability and predictability on revenue, as opposed to being a little uncertain on the timing and the amounts of remittances of bed tax to the county in a given quarter. That was especially uncertain during COVID, the height of it, and we're still kind of dealing with that now. Over time, the amounts have changed based upon the amount of payroll and the amount of operational budget the partnership has had. The amendment that has been prepared with the help of the county attorney's office, very helpful, great folks. Mike's a great new county attorney. The 7th amendment provides that stability and that predictability in quarterly payments, I believe, of $87,500 a quarter, drawable upon presentation to the Economic Development Committee and approval at the Board of Supervisors level. The agreement looks very much like last year's. The numbers were changed based upon some projections on sales tax, bed tax, which may be exceeded. We just don't know yet. I don't know if Steve or if any of the leadership have anything to add to that, or if anybody else does, but it's a proposed agreement that the county attorney signed off on, leadership has signed off on, and I'm good with. It'll get us through 2022, and looking down the calendar into the future, maybe the partnership will get to a point where actual receipts may be utilized without the need for predictability. But for now, this is the process that's worked for many years.
Hey, Justin. Now,
And if I may, if it's in 4 quarterly, but if it exceeds it, it's reconciled in the first quarter of next year in 2023.
That's exactly right. And out of necessity, the county through leadership and the board of supervisors last year was very careful in terms of the timing and the amounts of disbursements, kind of going off cycle a little bit because of the lag and some revenues. We're still dealing with COVID. The contract, and we're in a snapshot right now between January and March, what really happened last year. We'll figure out if an adjustment is necessary one way or the other in the next couple of months for 2021. Same thing will occur under this agreement. Hopefully, hopefully you see a lot more revenue and there's an adjustment that is beneficial to the partnership. But for now, I think it's a good approach.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And one of the things I just want to remind the board about is when we put the budget together here a few months ago, we were very conservative in the approach as to how we were going to be spending the funds that are going to be allocated to us, including establishing sort of at least a line item as a reserve fund, so that revenue that's going to be coming in, should it not be expended, which is, as we're still going through the process of updating our strategic plan and figuring out where we're going with this thing and staffing patterns and whatnot. That will give the organization the flexibility to manage those finances appropriately, but also at the same time provide sort of clear line of sight for the county, so that if we're coming around the third quarter and we know exactly where the funds are and can easily make everyone whole based on this agreement. So definitely take a look back at the budget if you need a reminder there, but this all, I think, makes a heck of a lot of sense for us.
A question I have, I guess, is relative to the money that's brought into the partnership vis-a-vis the occupancy tax, that we receive 50% of that. Now, I don't know this past year in terms of how much the county has actually received in revenue associated with the occupancy tax. The partnership board, as I pointed out in my financial report, has received 3/4 of payments of $112,500 for 3/4. So we still do not have the fourth quarter payment from the county. So I don't know, it's a question, just a comment at this particular time, that depending upon how our expenses are for 2021 versus the revenue associated with the occupancy tax that actually comes in, and we get 50%, we may be receiving a net revenue that would go in our fund balance associated with the occupancy tax. Is that correct?
Yeah, that remains to be seen. You received your third quarter payment early this year. It was associated with last year's contract. I think the treasurer's office, Drew and others are going to be in a better position to have an accurate snapshot in the next probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Based on that, there'll be a total amount of bed tax revenue that is shown as remitted and received countywide, and there'll be a 50% number generated. Looking at what you received in 2021 under those quarterly payments, you'll be able to determine whether it's high, low, or indifferent. There may be a marginal adjustment, or Lord knows, maybe it's a big one. We'll see. I suspect that last payment coming through might get things truer if there was an uptick towards the end of the year, and hopefully that lull between Delta and Omicron, maybe there was some accretion there, but with that third quarter payment sitting there right now, for lack of a better term, I don't think there's any risk of having to go look under the couch cushions on one perspective, or hopefully maybe it stays there. We'll see. But we'll, I guess, wait for the treasurer's office to inform us and figure out how that happens. And to the extent there is fund balance there, and it's a reflective of that 50% measurement, then that's good. And that, to Tim's point, the plan here is to try to use that strategically. If there's a fund balance there, it'll be held as a reserve, and the partnership can be intelligent in selecting programs it wants to support outside of general expenses.
Right. And it appears right now anyway, based on our finances, and Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of the expenses, that we have sufficient money in our account right now to pay off any outstanding bills that are necessary without making requests for the fourth quarter payment officially from the county until it's reconciled in terms of what was received in the occupancy tax and whether or not we're owed additional money from the county, or conversely, if we're going to be required to pay something back to the county because the 50% did not go to the amount that we actually received during the 3 quarters.
Hey, Rocky, yeah, you're correct. I don't foresee any expenses coming up where it'll put the bank's balance in a crunch, so to speak. So we're looking good.
Okay. All right. So until that gets reconciled, then we don't have to make a request for the fourth quarter payment. That would be my thought on it, unless Matthew, you see something occurring otherwise that would require that to take place.
Correct. Yeah. If anything comes up where we would need to request that, I'll definitely give the board a heads up before we make that request.
All right. And then we got the first quarter payment, of course, for 2022, within the next couple of months as well. So, okay.
I think you'd be able to achieve the snapshot and figure out where
Yep.
things stand before we hit that first quarter. And depending on where the math lies, the fourth quarter payment just may be ignored. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All very good questions. Does anybody have any additional questions? Okay. Are we ready to vote on this contract? Is that something that we are going to move to do?
Yeah, I just have one other minor a correction, I think, on the fourth whereas on the first page. It states, whereas the estimate of this account is reflected and set out in the 2021 budget, which budgets $350,000 for this purpose. I believe that should be the 2022 budget.
Yes.
So
That's correct. I'll address that with the county attorney's office in the final form to be routed to, I suspect, Maria for signature. So
okay.
we can dress that up and make sure that that's correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good. So with that a change, I'm comfortable.
Thank you. Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the contract with the correction that Rocky pointed out?
So move.
Thank you. Have a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Who is that? Oh, Todd, thank you so much. Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Aye. Anybody
Aye.
opposed? No opposed, no abstain? Okay, motion passed. Thank you very much. The next item is preparation for the annual meeting. Matt, would you like to do a presentation on that, please?
Yeah, I can do that, Chairwoman. So we've got a pretty lengthy agenda packet, as you can see here, and really is just to get some, kind of get this on everybody's radar. A lot of these documents we're going to need to have ready and completed for the annual audit report that goes along with the audit itself that we submit to the ABO. The first one that I have here is the annual meetings resolutions. That'll be something we will probably do, I would say, and it's up to you guys as the board, to do the annual meeting next month in February where we designate committee members. You can see after that is the ABO compliance form, but if you go a little further, speaking to the resolution, there is an interest form for all of our board members. So if you want to fill that in and get that back to us, or at least myself and Tim, get that back within the week or so. That way we can prepare for the February meeting, get everybody's interest form filled out, and then that'll give us some more direction going into that meeting. There also is the ABO compliance form, the acknowledgement of fiduciary duty. I know our new members will have to fill this out, and I'll have to check in. I'll work with Justin on, what we need to do in terms of if we need any returning members to fill that out again. Same goes with the conflict of interest form that's attached in here. So we'll give you some more further update on when to have that completed and sent back to Tim or myself. And that's really about it. So just wanted to kind of get that on everybody's radar, and we'll hopefully look to, conduct our annual meeting next month.
Thank you. Now, Tim or Matt, will you be reaching out to people to get their training or forms? Who's going to be the tracker, so to speak?
I'm happy to do that if you want, Matt. I can herd the cats and crack the whip. You guys are in trouble.
Oh.
That sounds good, Tim, and I'll help you wherever you need help. I can assist with that.
Matt will be the good cop and I will be the bad cop.
Yeah, and
Good teamwork.
as an aside, the resolution to be looked at, there's a form of it here at the February meeting, will largely be guardrailed a little bit by the success of the auditing firm, if it's still Weston Company, getting their management letter and their audit prepared. There's usually a couple weeks of interaction between Rocky and management and them, just to make sure that, and Matt, I'm certain will be involved. So congratulations, and we're sorry, but just as a recommendation to check in with them and make sure that their schedule and their timing meets up with your meeting. And if they're delayed for whatever reason, this might need to be taken up in March, but I suspect your audit's a fairly basic one. There's not a lot going on, so they should be able to meet that schedule.
That's a good point, Justin. Yeah, if we run into any hurdles, we can certainly host the annual meeting in March, like you said. I agree.
I have a question, once again, a technical question on the annual meeting resolution. Justin, you may be the person to answer, I guess. If we have our board meeting in February or March, whatever the case may be, but the resolution is stating February 28th. But in terms of the discussion, the dates that are incorporated in there for the different committees, for the officers, it stays from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st. If we're not taking action until February meeting, is that legally okay, the way it's written there?
Those dates are set as placeholders largely because we never know exactly where the meeting is going to land. So we can adjust those office terms if you'd like. I know right now we're kind of operating under a little bit of a holdover because of the transition of memberships and the executive committee. It's really up to you folks to determine whether you want to have a hard January date or if you want to pick those up as of the day of the meeting, however you want to do it.
I'll defer, I guess, to Maria.
I think they can stand as written right now. I think that's fine. If there's any kind of if there's any kind of action that needs to be taken, if there are any questions, anything like that, we can certainly communicate, for who's responsible or who would be, handling certain items that need to be looked at. I think there's great communication amongst the board that we can take care of that.
I guess my only concern is one of my concerns is we've had a turnover in terms of staff, excuse me, in terms of board membership. So to what extent does that play into the January 1st versus March 1st?
That's a good reason not to make any changes to the dates right now, that the people who are on the committees as of right now would be recognized until such date, February or March, depending on when that audit report comes in. And then at that point, we can have them officially recognized as on those committees as of that date. How does that sound?
Right, yeah, but I'm looking once again in terms of that resolution, in terms of the January 1st versus March 1st.
We'll just adjust it in February if we need to.
Okay,
This is just a proposed draft at this point.
okay, thank you.
Okay,
Oh, Maria, if I could, just 1 second, I forgot one document that was included in the packet, and that's our 2022, I just created a draft meeting schedule for the year, just so we all have it. As long as I don't know if we would need a vote on it, but as long as everyone's okay with that, how it's drafted, we can go with that, moving forward. And if any of those dates don't work going through the year, we can always adjust it by a board vote later on.
I agree with that. Thank you, Matt. Okay. Next item on the agenda is management report. Tim Dunn will do the presentation. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little shorter in this meeting than it had been in the past, but we'll dig into this and run through these different categories. You heard me already speak on the grant management with the USDA earlier in the meeting, so I won't bore you any further with that. The exciting part is the strategic plan development. We've talked a couple different times now about where this is starting to take shape. The sort of 3 pillars approach that we've discussed around industry engagement, planning and municipal support, and then special project development, whereas the mission of the Prosperity Partnership can really be an effective tool to support and augment the efforts that are taking place elsewhere in collaboration with some of these other activities that are taking place for our partners with SEDC, with the chambers and a number of other organizations. So those concepts now that we've discussed, I've started socializing and vetting out with several stakeholders, and in general they've been very positively received. We obviously have some of them listed here as more specific action items, and they seem to be trending in the right direction. My goal is now to start actually drafting this out on paper here over the next few weeks. Hoping to have that first draft together early in February, which I will connect with the executive team to let them throw all their rocks first with the executive committee to make sure that we iron out any problematic areas before we take that to the full board to start digging in a little bit further. The thinking is that we would probably have a good chunk of February dedicated to getting this draft massaged into an appropriate place, so that we can then start engaging at the board level through February and into March to finalize this new plan. Pretty excited about it. I think we have some really important priorities identified here, but also I'm a big believer that in economic development, successful economic development really is about putting yourself out of business. And doing less often is more. And I think it's going to be important for this organization to not just be a consumer of tax dollars, but how can we be as efficient as possible and really get a lot of impact for the investment that's coming in. So that's sort of those concepts of efficiency and collaboration really are going to run throughout this. So I'm pretty excited about it. We'll be digging in a little bit more next month on that. On outreach marketing engagement, we had a great event in December, which you heard about at the last meeting out on the West Coast. We did have another one on our calendar for January, but as you all well know, the COVID numbers really got to be problematic for a lot of folks. That event has been shifted to April, so we now need to sort of reassess the value of is that something that we want to invest in or not. More importantly than that event and going out and talking to the tech world, that's a really great one where there's about 200 decision makers at this event every year. All of New York's pretty much represented. More important to that is in May, we're going to be looking at the Advanced Semiconductor Manufacturing Conference that's coming right here to Saratoga Springs. That's an event that I believe Phil and Todd and Steve, you guys may have been to some of the parts of that in the past. This is going to be the first time that it's come back post-COVID. This is a really great event where there's about at its highest level, it was over 400 engineers and technical leaders in the semiconductor industry would come to Saratoga Springs. This event is actually one that I helped bring to town about 12 years ago when I heard that SEMI, the largest industry trade organization in the semiconductor industry, was looking at bringing it to Albany. And I was able to get a hold of the organizers and said, please, 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 for all that is holy, don't take this group of leaders to the Wolf Road Marriott. We'll never see them again. And we were able to convince them to bring the event to downtown Saratoga. And the event has grown significantly over the last decade. And it really is a great opportunity to show business leaders just why doing business in Saratoga County is so very, very important. We're hoping those numbers are going to be back up into the 300 or 400 range like it was pre-pandemic, but remains to be seen. We are already working with our partners at Saratoga Economic Development Corporation and Discover Saratoga on how we properly roll out the red carpet for those industry leaders when they come to town to make sure that we get the most bang for our buck there. So that's really exciting. Jeff, unfortunately, is not here today. I know he's very excited about what the opportunity that's emerging on sports tourism. We have met now with Discover Saratoga and the Saratoga County Chamber to start putting together some of our asset catalog. There actually had been some work done on this several years ago that sort of fell fallow. And so now we're going to be able to reinvigorate that and going to be looking at putting together an RFP on, what our strengths and weaknesses are, where there are opportunities for investment, and also really truly looking at the ROI of sports tourism so that we can understand with investments in facilities like, great example, the Impact Center. What is that meaning for our local economy? What is that meaning for restaurants and hotels? What is that driving in terms of new bed tax? What is that driving in terms of new economic opportunity? Some really exciting stuff to come there. And then the final piece on industry engagement, outreach, and marketing is, Dave, I did not forget about you. You're still getting pulled into the mix here. And I got to go put on my learning cap and going to go spend some time with Dave here in the next couple of weeks to start getting the wheels turning on agricultural opportunities, agribusiness, agritourism. We have a ton of opportunities in this space in Saratoga County. And you don't have to look very far to see some of our neighbors in the area that do a heck of a good job in driving opportunities in the ag sector. Our friends over in Washington County do some great stuff, and with I think it's the Washington County Cheese Trail. We have opportunities right now in our county with brewing and distilling, with dairy, with meat processing. I think there's a lot of really exciting things that we can be digging into there. So even though I'm a Herkimer County guy originally, I had limited ag experience, so I got to go learn from Dave a little bit and pick his brain and come out with some thoughts for our team to consider. So really excited.
We'll accept it or excuse it either way.
Hey, no bull, right? Sorry, couldn't help myself. And then finally here on strategic development, new programmatic activities. not going to beat a dead horse there, but we know we've talked about it before with the LDC potential of our organization. There are really some tremendous opportunities as we look forward to some of the new investment coming into the county and how excuse me, how we might be able to fill some gaps in project financing when appropriate, be it on infrastructure or other key critical investments to make sure that we keep seeing the success that we have. Certainly more to come on that. I will, Justin, I have been digging into the new Harris Beach Bible, and I will encourage any of you guys that you want some light reading, the Harris Beach Economic Development Handbook. And we can even share around the link to it online. But this is a great read to start getting up to snuff on a lot of the tools that we have at our disposal as economic developers. So I'll send that around as a follow-up here. And then a couple different grant opportunities that are on the horizon. We talked about broadband with USDA earlier, so I won't beat that dead horse again. We do need to start thinking about, and rather quickly, what, if any, priorities we may have vis-a-vis the Northern Border Regional Commission fund. This is funds that have been made available by the federal government. And just a few years ago, Congresswoman Stefanik was great in getting Saratoga County included into that geographic territory. I know this is stuff that Steve's familiar with from his federal time. This is a great fund to seek economic development opportunities. So I think we need to start noodling on what sort of projects might be on the horizon and priorities we have in front of us for 22, large and small for some of those federal funds. And we do need to do a follow-up with SEDC. We wanted to get through the county's organizational meeting and kind of get our legs under us before we do that. But that's something I'm probably going to be reaching out to some folks on to put together some time with our partners at SEDC to focus on some of the priorities we have around advanced technology, marketing. We have some opportunities within the supply chain that we need to put a more holistic plan together. And that will then allow us to seek out some really great National Grid and NYSEG funds to help our operations. So some exciting stuff to come there. Finally, on the transparency, accountability, and compliance, Matt has been stellar at getting stuff posted to the web, getting our agenda and minutes out there. Him and I have spent a lot of time last week in getting our digital tools in place. But look, we're now able to do this virtually and have these things rolling. Hopefully we can get a couple other tweaks made so that we don't have any more blips or headaches on that. So with that, I spoke for a very long time. I apologize for that. A lot I wanted to cover. Any questions that anyone has on any of those topics?
There's a lot of really good information, Tim. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about the knowledge that we're going to gain from the sports tourism.
It's so huge, and this is an opportunity with sports tourism. When we take a step back and think about it, this impacts every single community in Saratoga County in ways you might not even imagine. Having a soccer field in Corinth or Day or Half Moon, and the investment that comes with that, because people are coming into town to see their kids. I know as a father of young children, I'm chasing them all over the darn state for games and practices and tournaments. And every time we get there, someone's forgotten something, and we're going out to the store and we're buying things. and by being a little bit more strategic and practical with intentional with what we do around sports tourism, I think we have some really serious opportunities to drive real investment and growth. And we want to do that in a manner that we have some data to back it up and really have some technical input to say, here's what we're getting out of that investment. So really excited about it, and I hope you guys are too.
Yeah.
If I may, I'd like to volunteer to be part of that in any way I can. I have an adjacent project that I've been working on, and there are studies out of the Midwest. I think a research company called Sherwood did a pretty extensive survey of the economic impact of youth sports that they were commissioned to do soccer specifically. I'm doing one that's baseball related, and I've spent much of the last decade involved in that world. So I'd love to to lend whatever I've learned in the process to any of those conversations.
That's fantastic. We have, Jeff, who was unfortunately not able to join us today, has a deep background in that space as well, as a former college baseball player and coach. And I the more the merrier. I think there's a huge opportunity there. We've seen a lot of numbers out of the Virginia Beach Tourism and Convention group that shows really significant impact. And I think we can really do some interesting things there. So Dave, I will definitely be following up with you, and we'll pull you into our little group, and we will suck every bit of knowledge out of you.
I'm glad to participate.
Excellent. Thank you.
That is really
That's it for
wonderful.
me, Maria.
I'm sorry.
That's it for me.
Oh, that was a lot. And I thank you so much again for that. And Dave, David Karpinski, thank you so much for volunteering your time to help with that. It's great collaboration. Like I said, that's this board. We collaborate all the time. So thank you.
Maria, I have a question for
Yes.
Tim regarding the strategic plan, if I may. Tim, in terms of the strategic plan, in terms of the outreach, specifically with board members, we've had a turnover. I mean, I got my list and I see there's changes in terms of members have left the board and new members are obviously on the board by who's present here today. And I guess concern I have is making sure that there's sufficient input and discussion amongst the board in terms of moving forward, what we'd like to see in terms of strategic plan. And with the new folks on board here, I was wondering to what extent there's going to be an interactive conversation, a facilitated conversation, if you will, amongst the board in the preparation of the strategic plan. And I don't know also in terms of several of the members that are no longer on the board were from the private sector. I'm assuming that I don't know the new members, if they also represent the private sector, but, Global Foundries, Momentive, those gentlemen are, Brendan Chuddy, Josh Spain are no longer on the board here, as well as Penny Hill from the educational community and that link with terms of workforce development opportunities. So once again, I just wondering what thoughts are moving forward relative to getting input and feedback from the board, especially with the new board.
I think that's a great point, Rocky. And actually one of the things that we could do, because we do have so many new members, I'd be more than willing to, I'm at outline stage now, I'm not, the pen isn't fully on paper yet for drafting. But what I'd like to do is if it's okay with you, Maria, is set up a time with the new board members. So we'll do a little virtual meeting and go over the outline of where we are currently and sort of how we got here. So that, you guys aren't operating in a vacuum and have a little bit of context there. And that also gives a really great opportunity for you to share some input, right away before we even start drafting that out. So if it's okay with you, Maria, I'll reach out, maybe in the next week or two and try to get something on the calendar with you guys that'll work for everyone's calendar so that we can have a deeper dive discussion on that topic.
I think that's fine.
Great. And of course, if you don't want to, that's okay too. I don't want to force you to jump into more meetings. We're all very busy. Would love to have your expertise in as part of this, but I want to be respectful of your calendars and commitments as well.
So Tim, following up, is there going to be a conversation amongst the board, the Prosperity Partnership Board, between the draft and the final, I'm assuming, or some conversations in terms of getting our feedback and input?
Yeah, so that from a scheduling standpoint, my thinking is here, I can do a session with the new board members and sort of outline, here's where we are so far and sort of what went into it. And based on that feedback, then I'll be able to start drafting. My goal is to try to have something for the board to start chewing on by the middle of February. We'll have our February board meeting is going to be, our organizational meeting. So I don't know if we want to go too deep in that discussion, but that's certainly up to the board. And then we can follow on from there in terms of review and digging in, however the board feels is most appropriate. It can be as iterative a process as you'd like. Or if I hear you're volunteering to write, I'm always accepting that.
Say that's a good plan. Naturally, I would like to have the February meeting, if that is the timing of the audit report and the management letter, you know, that will be the February meeting. The organizational meeting, I think, should be its own meeting, and then we can schedule either, you know, an additional meeting if we need to, or handle it in March, you know, whichever month we're not doing the organizational meeting, basically. We could discuss strategic plan.
Okay.
So that both are pretty meaty topics, and, you know, we want to,
Got plenty on our plate.
yeah, we don't want to overwhelm. So I just wanted to thank Justin Miller for reaching out to us, related to the ability to meet virtually, you know, what laws are on the books as of today, you know, ever-changing things that we need to keep track of. Justin was very helpful with that. And I wanted to welcome all our new members. We didn't really do too much of an introduction or, you know, discussion of background, but we can certainly do that at our organizational meeting. So thank you all so much for coming. And if anybody has any additional items that they would like to discuss, we can do that now.
Maria, just one other thing I forgot to add in our earlier discussion. I apologize. Matt and I were working last week on new board binders for everyone.
Right.
So that is in process. So we didn't have all the material together that we wanted to have timing wise to get it to you before today. But you will be getting a binder with, you know, bylaws, finance, bios, the whole kit and caboodle. So you have a pretty good detailed, you know, one-stop binder for all things SCPP.
Great. Thank you so much. That is very helpful. I found the board binder to be extremely helpful in terms of, you know, reading the bylaws and getting the information that I didn't really have before. So It's a really great resource.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. And if you need any help with that, or if you're interested in recycling, I do have a binder that I can recycle.
I may take you up on that. In the interest of being green, right?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any other comments or thoughts to share before we close? Okay, well, with that, I will again say thank you to everybody for showing up and participating, and our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 28th. We'll know as we get closer to that date where we are with the audit, and we can determine if that will be our organizational meeting. And of course, we'll send that information to you. So with that, I would like to close the meeting.
Maria, you want to ask for a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please. Thank you, Phil. May I have a second? Thank you, Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.